We've all heard of residential rehab centres like the Priory, where people go for months at a time to deal with their addictions. But how about addiction treatment that you can get in your own home? Let's speak to Simon Stevens from County Durham-based social enterprise AddictionsUK. Simon, good evening.
Good evening, Mark.
What kind of addictions do you treat?
We treat a whole range of addictions. Clearly, we treat alcohol and drug addictions, but we also work with people with what we call process addictions. They may be things like gambling or sex or shoplifting, a whole range of things that people do to come to terms with their emotions. We tend to find our clients are very sensitive. They have problems with emotions. They desensitize this emotional base by indulging in alcohol or drugs or gambling, whatever the addiction is. But
just explain how it works, Simon, because we've all heard of residential rehab centres. Some are really, really famous, but you don't work that way, do you?
We don't. We recognise we are a group of recovering alcoholics, and we recognise that treatment can be very expensive, and not all of us can take 3 months off work and expect to still to have a job. To go off and stay in a nice posh country house somewhere. And we also recognise that whilst you learn how to live in a closed environment, you're not learning how to live in the real world. And that's often our problem. When we're in a safe place, we're okay. It's the real world, and particularly family life, that can be so challenging.
So if you don't do residential, what do you do?
We work with our clients every day over the phone. We offer 24-hour helplines. We have counselling sessions. We use various books and DVDs. If you view it as a sort of distance learning technique, we do that. But clearly, the big thing is the fact that we're on the line. We're available 24 hours a day. If people sense it as a problem cropping up, they can get hold of us.
That's interesting. Does that work as well as actually sitting in front of somebody and looking them in the eye?
For many people, it can work better because they can say things that they won't say to another individual. And the important thing is not always that you're saying it to another individual, although that can be quite important. You're saying it to yourself. You're actually taking ownership of your demons.
Do you think there's a difference in treatment between those who suffer from substance addictions and behavioural addictions? You talked about sex and shopping.
There is a big difference in that behavioural addictions are very much second-class citizens, although they're equally capable of ruining not only the person themselves, their lives, but their families as well. This is a family illness. It affects everybody in the family group. And often, before treatment is sought, people within the family group collude with the addict to help them do what they're doing, simply in a sense to get a quiet life.
So how do they avoid that situation? This is a question I put to Sally Marlowe at King's College London. How do those who are closest to the sufferers begin to take the first steps to help them?
In a simple phrase, you stop enabling. If it's a son or a daughter who you're supplying with money or food because they live in their own flat but they're abusing alcohol or drugs, when you supply them with food, all you're doing is releasing financial resources for them to indulge in more drugs or alcohol.
So tough love.
It's tough love. You've got to create a critical condition where change can happen. None of us are going to change if our life is relatively comfortable. If we can get away with living what appears to be a normal life and our addiction, then we will do. Remember, alcoholics we're pretty sneaky people. Certainly I was when I was in the grips of addiction. I could be very sneaky, and I could get what I wanted by manipulating people. We're very skilled manipulators.
So what helped you, Simon?
When my life hit crisis. And I spoke to another alcoholic. And I also, we do use a 12-step system. It's a little updated from that used by AA, but very similar. We highly recommend AA for people who can work in group. For people who can't work in group, then we have our telephone system that's much more one-to-one. And often you'll find that people have more than one problem. They may well be alcoholic, they may well be drug dependent or whatever, but there are other social and mental issues going on as well, and we're skilled to be able to help them address those.
And finally, there seems to be a bit of an argument going on, certainly in the texts I'm receiving on this subject tonight, as to who should be the first to help. Some argue that it's absolutely down to family members, to partners. Others say, no, they're too close. It needs to be a a friend or another alcoholic or somebody else who suffers and therefore has a better understanding? What would your view be?
My view would be that friends and family can help the individual see that they are in crisis, but we are amongst the most stubborn of people. Often it's not until we're left with a little bit of space that we can actually accept and tell the truth to ourselves that we have got a problem. Certainly in terms of therapy, it is best left either to another alcoholic or a professional in the field, simply because family members can be too close. And remember, they're bound up in this illness as well, although they may not see it. And as an organisation, when we offer treatment to individuals, we also offer treatment to their family members included in the price.
Yeah, very sensible. Simon Stevens from County Durham-based social enterprise Addictions UK with his views on the best way to help an addict. Good to hear yours as well. 0345 300 1850.